The Cleveland Browns quarterback battle is already turning into complete chaos, and the craziest part is these guys haven't even played a real game yet. But somehow, fans are already divided, insiders are arguing non-stop, and now former Browns players are jumping into the conversation too. Because while reporters like Tony Grossi and Mary Kay continue pushing the idea that Deshaun Watson still has the inside track to start, a huge part of the fanbase believes Shedeur Sanders is already changing the energy around this franchise completely. And honestly, that's where things start getting uncomfortable. Because the Browns keep saying this is an open competition, but their actions, the media coverage, and the reactions from fans are all telling very different stories. Then Joe Haddon stepped in and made things even messier by questioning why people are already acting like the battle is over before training camp even begins. Now the pressure is building fast, and if this situation keeps escalating, Cleveland could be heading toward one of the most controversial quarterback decisions in the entire NFL. The backlash against Browns insiders exploded almost immediately after Tony Grossi and Mary Kay started suggesting that Deshaun Watson still has the advantage in this quarterback competition. And the reason fans got so angry wasn't just because of the opinion itself. It was because a lot of people feel like the media already made up its mind before Shedeur Sanders even had a real chance to compete. That frustration has been building online for weeks now. The second reporters started talking about Watson potentially leading the race, social media completely lit up. Fans started reposting old clips, bringing up Watson's struggles from last season, and questioning why people were acting like Shedeur had already fallen behind despite rookie camp barely starting. Some supporters even accused insiders of pushing narratives based more on reputation than actual performance. And honestly, that's where this situation becomes fascinating. Because this isn't just about football anymore, it's become emotional. The moment Shedeur Sanders entered the Browns organization, the entire conversation changed. He brought attention, excitement, controversy, and one of the biggest fan followings in football with him. That instantly created tension between traditional football media and a younger fan base that believes Shedeur deserves a real opportunity immediately. Then Emory Hunt added even more fuel to the fire. His comments basically suggested that some analysts are speaking emotionally instead of objectively. In other words, fans heard him saying that certain people already decided whether they like or dislike Shedeur before evaluating what's actually happening on the field. Whether that's true or not, it hit a nerve online because a lot of viewers already suspected that bias was influencing the coverage. And once fans start believing media coverage is unfair, every comment becomes controversial. Suddenly, ordinary football opinions start feeling personal. A simple statement about Watson having experience turns into accusations that reporters are disrespecting Shedeur. A comment about Watson being ahead after practices becomes evidence that insiders are protecting veterans instead of supporting competition. That's why this quarterback battle feels different from normal camp storylines. There's real tension now. Not just between quarterbacks, but between fan bases, reporters, analysts, and expectations. Every practice update gets dissected online like it's playoff football. Every quote becomes debate material. Every insider opinion turns into another war in the comments section. And the scary part for Cleveland is this pressure is only getting stronger. Because the more attention Shedeur receives, the harder it becomes for the Browns to quietly manage expectations without upsetting somebody. But what really changed everything was the realization that Shedeur Sanders isn't just another rookie quarterback. His presence alone is already reshaping the franchise conversation. The moment Shedeur Sanders arrived in Cleveland, the quarterback battle stopped being a normal competition. It instantly became one of the biggest storylines in football. And honestly, the Browns may not have fully realized just how massive this spotlight would become once his name got attached to the franchise. Because Shedeur doesn't enter situations quietly. Everywhere he goes, attention follows, cameras follow, Debate follows, fans follow. That's been true since Colorado, and now it's happening again in Cleveland. Suddenly, practices that normally wouldn't matter are generating national headlines. Rookie minicamp clips are going viral. Analysts are discussing Browns quarterback reps in May like it's the middle of the playoffs. That level of attention changes everything inside an organization. And according to some reports and speculations surrounding the draft process, that spotlight may actually be one reason certain teams hesitated on Shedeur in the first place. Some people around football reportedly questioned whether franchises wanted the pressure, expectations, and constant media attention that naturally comes with him, not because of talent concerns alone, but because his presence immediately becomes bigger than normal rookie storylines. Now Cleveland is experiencing that reality firsthand. The Browns suddenly have one of the most watched quarterback rooms in the league, and every move they make is getting analyzed publicly. If Watson gets more reps, fans react. If Shedeur throws a good pass in practice, clips spread everywhere online. If coaches praise one quarterback over another, social media instantly starts arguing about favoritism. That's an exhausting environment for a coaching staff to manage. But here's what makes it even more interesting. Shedeur himself hasn't really done anything negative yet. Reports from camp suggest he's working hard, learning the system, and handling the attention calmly. Coaches haven't publicly criticized him. Teammates haven't complained. In fact, many comments about him have actually been positive, which makes the pushback against him feel even louder to fans. Because supporters are sitting there asking a simple question: if Shedeur hasn't struggled publicly, why are people already acting like he's clearly behind? That question keeps growing louder every single week, especially whenever insiders continue talking about Watson leading the competition. And that's where Cleveland's problem begins. The Browns are trying to balance development, expectations, veteran politics, fan excitement, and media pressure all at the same time. That's incredibly difficult because no matter what decision they make, one side is going to explode online. If Watson starts, people will say the Browns ignored what fans saw with their own eyes. If Shedeur rises quickly, critics will claim the organization gave in to hype and pressure. Either way, the tension keeps building. And the Browns aren't helping themselves much because their public messaging about the quarterback battle has started sounding incredibly confusing. One minute, it's an open competition. The next minute, insiders are practically treating Watson like the expected starter already. That contradiction is exactly why fans are starting to question what's really happening behind the scenes. One of the biggest reasons this quarterback battle feels so chaotic right now is because the Browns keep sending completely mixed signals. On one side, head coach Todd Monken and general manager Andrew Berry continue publicly describing the situation as an open competition. They keep emphasizing patience, development, and letting things play out naturally. But on the other side, insiders and analysts keep talking like Deshaun Watson already has one hand on the starting job. That contradiction is driving fans crazy. Because if this competition is truly wide open, why does it constantly sound like Watson is still viewed as the favorite no matter what happens? That's the question people online keep asking over and over again. And honestly, Cleveland hasn't given a clear answer yet. Now, to be fair, this kind of thing happens all the time in the NFL. Teams almost always protect veteran quarterbacks publicly, especially when massive contracts are involved. Coaches rarely walk into press conferences and openly admit that a younger player is seriously threatening the veteran starter this early in the offseason. Organizations prefer stability. They prefer calmness. They prefer avoiding unnecessary controversy. But this situation already feels controversial anyway. That's because fans are paying attention to every little detail. They're comparing practice clips. They're listening carefully to every quote from coaches and insiders. They're noticing how differently certain players are discussed publicly. And once people start believing the messaging doesn't match reality, trust disappears quickly. The Watson situation makes this even harder to manage. The Browns invested an enormous amount of money into him. Reports continue suggesting the organization still wants to see whether he can return to his old form physically and mentally. That means there's naturally going to be pressure inside the building to give him every opportunity possible before moving in another direction. But fans see another side of it too. They remember the struggles. They remember the offensive inconsistency. They remember the criticism from last season. So when they hear insiders immediately placing Watson ahead of Shedeur despite rookie camp barely starting, it creates frustration because people feel like performance should matter more than reputation. And honestly, that frustration isn't completely unreasonable. Joe hadn't even hinted at something similar when discussing how early this entire conversation still is. He basically pointed out that these quarterbacks haven't even gone through real padded practices yet. No preseason games, no live NFL action, just off-season workouts and early evaluations. So why are people already acting like the competition is basically decided? That question continues hanging over everything right now. And the Browns may not realize how dangerous this situation could become if they don't manage expectations carefully. Because once fans believe a team is forcing a veteran into the lineup instead of letting competition happen naturally, the pressure becomes overwhelming fast. Especially when the backup quarterback already has one of the loudest fan bases in football behind him. That's why this entire battle suddenly feels way bigger than just football. It's becoming a public debate about fairness, hype, money, and whether Cleveland is truly willing to let the best quarterback win the job, no matter who it is. The moment Joe hadn't stepped into this quarterback debate, the entire tone of the conversation shifted, because unlike reporters or analysts arguing online, Haddon actually understands what NFL locker rooms feel like. He played for the Browns. He knows how organizations think behind closed doors. And most importantly, he knows how quickly people overreact during the offseason. That's why his comments hit differently. While everybody else seemed ready to crown Deshaun Watson or panic about Shedeur Sanders falling behind, Haddon basically slowed the entire conversation down. He reminded people that these quarterbacks haven't even gone through real football conditions yet. No padded practices, no preseason games, no real defensive pressure, just off-season reps and media speculation. And honestly, that reality changes everything. Because fans online are acting like the Browns are already halfway through the season, when in reality, this competition is barely getting started. Haddon even pointed out that talking about a quarterback battle this intensely in May feels ridiculous. And he's not wrong. NFL depth charts change constantly once training camp actually begins. One strong week can completely flip momentum. One preseason performance can suddenly force coaches to rethink everything. That's why Haddon's comments gave Shedeur supporters hope again. Instead of treating Watson like the guaranteed starter, he acknowledged that Shedeur still has a real opportunity to earn serious consideration. He even brought up the fact that Shedeur finished last season showing flashes that suggested he could handle NFL-level responsibilities. Meanwhile, Watson's recent performances left a lot more questions than answers. That's an important detail many fans feel insiders keep ignoring. Because while Watson absolutely has experience and financial investment on his side, the actual on-field production recently hasn't exactly silenced critics. Haddon carefully hinted at that reality without completely attacking Watson directly. He basically acknowledged what many Browns fans already feel. This competition should not be treated as settled yet. And once a respected former player says something like that, people listen differently. Suddenly fans started questioning insider narratives even harder. If someone like Joe Haddon believes this battle remains wide open, why are reporters speaking so confidently about Watson leading already? That contradiction created even more tension online, because it reinforced the idea that fans might be hearing two completely different versions of the same situation. But Haddon also made another important point people shouldn't ignore. He admitted Watson still has advantages too. Experience matters. Veteran status matters. And unfortunately for Shedeur, the Browns' massive financial commitment to Watson matters most of all. That's the uncomfortable truth hanging over this entire quarterback competition right now. Because no matter how exciting Shedeur looks, there's still one giant factor Cleveland can't escape: the contract. And that may end up deciding far more than fans want to admit. Is going to become national news. And honestly, Cleveland may not be fully prepared for how intense that spotlight is about to get. The biggest reason is simple. Shedeur Sanders already has one of the loudest fan bases in football. Every highlight clip spreads instantly online. Every good throw gets reposted everywhere. Every strong practice creates another wave of people demanding he deserves a bigger opportunity. That kind of attention creates enormous pressure on an organization, especially if the veteran starter struggles at all. And fans are already warning about it now. There's growing speculation online that if Watson has even one rough preseason game, social media will explode immediately with demands for Shedeur to take over. Fair or unfair, that's the environment Cleveland is walking into. The fan excitement surrounding Shedeur is so massive that the Browns may lose control of the public conversation very quickly if things don't go smoothly early. That's why preseason suddenly feels incredibly important. Normally coaches downplay exhibition games, but this year every drive will feel magnified. Every quarterback rep will be analyzed by fans, media personalities, and NFL insiders looking for evidence supporting their opinion. Watson supporters will point toward experience and leadership. Shedeur supporters will focus on upside, energy, and momentum. And once those debates intensify, things could get uncomfortable fast. Especially because the Browns are already sending mixed messages publicly. If Watson starts preseason slowly while Shedeur flashes potential behind him, the pressure on Cleveland's coaching staff could become overwhelming. Fans will question every decision. Reporters will ask tougher questions. Debate shows will start pushing narratives non-stop. Suddenly, the Browns won't just be managing a quarterback competition anymore. They'll be managing a full media circus. That's what makes this situation feel different from normal NFL drama. There's already emotional investment on every side. Some fans desperately want Watson to prove people wrong and finally justify the contract. Others believe Shedeur represents the future and should get opportunities immediately. Meanwhile, the Browns are stuck trying to balance development, winning games, protecting investments, and controlling public expectations all at the same time. And honestly, that balancing act rarely stays stable for long in the NFL. Because once losing enters the conversation, patience disappears quickly. If the Browns' offense struggles early in the season, the calls for change could become impossible to ignore. And with Shedeur Sanders sitting right there as the most exciting backup storyline in football, every bad offensive drive would instantly create more pressure. That's why this battle suddenly feels bigger than just a depth chart decision. It feels like the beginning of a storm Cleveland might not be able to control once the season finally starts. At this point, it honestly feels like the Browns' quarterback battle has already become one of the most divided situations in the entire NFL, and the real games haven't even started yet. That's what makes this whole thing so crazy. Fans are arguing non-stop, insiders keep sending mixed signals, former players are questioning the narratives, and now every single update surrounding Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson immediately turns into another massive debate online. And the tension is only getting stronger. On one side, you have people believing Watson still deserves the first opportunity because of experience, money invested, and the possibility that he can still return to form. On the other side, you have fans looking at Shedeur Sanders as the future of the franchise already. They see the confidence, the energy, the attention surrounding him, and they believe Cleveland may eventually have no choice but to give him a real shot. That's what makes this situation feel impossible to predict right now. Because honestly, both sides have valid arguments. The Browns clearly aren't ready to publicly move on from Watson yet, but at the same time, the excitement around Shedeur keeps growing every single week. And once fan pressure starts building in the NFL, organizations can lose control of the narrative very quickly. Joe Haddon's comments made that even clearer. He basically reminded everybody that this competition is still in its earliest stages and that nobody truly knows how things will look once training camp and preseason games begin. That's important because one strong performance can completely shift momentum in the NFL. One breakout preseason drive can suddenly change an entire quarterback conversation overnight. But if there's one thing that feels obvious already, it's this: Cleveland is heading toward a season full of pressure. Every Watson throw will get analyzed. Every Shedeur highlight will go viral. Every coaching decision will get questioned. And if the Browns struggle offensively at any point, the calls for change could become louder than anything the organization expects. That's why this battle no longer feels like a normal quarterback competition. It feels like the beginning of a franchise-defining controversy that could shape Cleveland's future for years, depending on how they handle it. Now the only question left is whether the Browns are truly committed to letting the best quarterback win, or whether this decision has already quietly been made behind the scenes before training camp even begins.